crimson rivers, the choice. James hadn't felt it when the dagger went in. Perhaps that's ironic, but between the adrenaline and everything else that had just happened, it genuinely didn't register to him at all at first. He was just standing there, reeling from the final cannon that meant he would get to go home, and then he felt the wet, sticky drag of heat that he's come to recognize as blood sliding down his skin. Because he recognizes it now. Because he's bled enough at this point to know. As soon as he touched the blood, the pain broke through. It wasn't anything like he'd imagined it would feel. A heavy, throbbing burn, more so than a stinging sensation. But it was okay in James's mind, because they had won. They had made it to the end, and they were going to go home. James is tired of trying to hope. He thinks he'd like to stop now. He thinks it's best if he doesn't do it anymore, because it never seemed to work out for him. In a way, James is almost relieved. As much as he would have liked to go home, he's come to terms with the fact that he wouldn't be able to once, so it's easy to do it again. He accepts it with no fuss, just as he did when he made his choice from the very beginning. It's okay, he thinks. It's going to be okay. Because, see, James did it. James helped Regulus make it to the end. All that he set out to do at the start, and he's done it. He didn't fail. Regulus is alive, and he's going to go home. On the bright side, at least Regulus won't have to kill him. At least James knows for sure that Regulus can't, and even with that fact, it's not an issue. James is bleeding out, slowly but surely, and Regulus doesn't have to worry about a thing. Though, honestly, James had meant it when he said that he wishes it had been Regulus. Maybe it's a strange, psychosexual thing, but he feels like he's sort of been flirting with Regulus and his dagger the entire time. So to be stabbed by him would surely have been more satisfying. Regulus would have made sure James felt it, adrenaline or not. He isn't sure why that's so attractive to him, but it really is. Maybe James is in shock. Maybe James actually does have a knife kink. Maybe James is just in love, and he wants anything he can get from Regulus, even if it's literal death. Instead, what he gets is Regulus's hands hauling him up and dragging him to one of the poles closest to them, leaning James against it and causing him pain, because he's so fucking mean. Oh, he's so mean. James is madly in love with him. "Let me see, James, let me see," Regulus chokes out, kneeling down beside him, back thrown on the ground and tipped over so everything has fallen out. All the contents spilled in his haste to find something that will work. He's pale. "Stop," James murmurs, reaching out to catch Regulus's hand with the one not cupping his stomach, keeping Regulus from touching his blood. "You don't need to see. There's nothing to look at because there's nothing to fix." Regulus's eyes are clouded with a film of tears, his breathing wonky, like it's a chore. "James?" "Just sit with me," James says, sliding his hand up to thread their fingers together. A broken sound falls out of Regulus's mouth. "Shh, don't do that. It's fine, love." "We were supposed to go home together," Regulus whimpers, shaking his head. "It's not fair." "I know," James agrees, "but if it couldn't be both of us, it was always going to be you." "You said—" Regulus swallows, reaching out with his free hand to cup James's cheek. It's such a kind thing for him to do, and it feels so nice. "You said something when you were high. James, you said something about getting me home, whatever it takes, and apparently you made a promise to Sirius to do that. You were high, so I figured it wasn't true." James sighs quietly, leaning his face over into Regulus's palm, studying his eyes. Regulus was never supposed to know about that. Is it cruel to confirm it now? James's biggest fear is that Regulus will hate him for it, but he's dying. Perhaps it's underhanded, but he likes to think that gives him a free pass. "It wasn't true, right, James?" Regulus whispers, holding his gaze. When James doesn't immediately respond, Regulus sucks in a sharp breath. "James?" "The day our names were called, I made the choice," James admits. "I did promise Sirius, and I told my parents goodbye, but I made my decision the moment we locked eyes on that stage. Right then and there, I knew." "This whole time, your plan was to get me home? That's what you were fighting for? Not yourself, James? Me?" Regulus asks, his voice cracking. "Of course, love," James tells him, because anything else is unfathomable to him. It always was. Of course. No. Regulus shakes his head again and drops his hand down from James's cheek to cover the back of James's hand over his stomach, uncaring of the blood. Yet the moment he comes into contact with proof that James is bleeding out, that James is dying, his face twists as the tears in his eyes spill over. Don't cry, James whispers. Really, it's okay. No, Regulus moans pitifully, his shoulders heaving as he starts crying in earnest. He folds forward and buries his face into James's shoulder, but only for a few moments, a few breaths. He gasps out a sob, then seems to swallow it as he lifts his head and gazes at James from up close. Blotchy and tear-streaked and absolutely beautiful. I can't do it. Don't do this to me. Please don't do this to me. I'm sorry, James murmurs gently, because he really is. He can see that it's hurting Regulus, and he never wants that, but it can't be helped. He can only be sorry. I really am, Reg. Then try, Regulus demands. Keep trying. I need you to. James, please just. I'm tired, James says softly. I'm just really tired. And it's okay. I promise it's okay. I don't regret it. I never regretted it from the moment I made my choice. Not once. Why would you do that? Regulus rasps, more tears filling his eyes as he holds James's gaze. You have so much to live for, James. You have Sirius and your parents and your friends. So why would you choose this? I don't understand. Because I love you, James whispers, like it's their little secret. Because I'm in love with you. Because I'm so pathetically in love with you that I can't ignore it. I can't ignore you. I can't escape it. And I'm willing to die for it. I'm happy to. Because living without you would be worse. You don't understand because you don't feel the same, and that's okay. You don't have to. Just know that I love you, and that's why. I've loved you for so long, for 10 years. Never forget how loved you are, Regulus. How loved you've always been. Regulus hiccups out a shaky breath, his expression crumbling, and he curls forward to press his face into James's shoulder, weeping so deeply, so heartbreakingly grief-stricken, that it hurts more than dying does. And James would know. Remus knows how quickly things can fall apart, but he doesn't think he's seen such levels of destruction in such a short amount of time, like he just witnessed when Sirius's hope was crushed. They'd only just had breakfast, and Sirius was just about to leave to go to the watch party like every other day, but Remus cut on the screen as he was heading to the door in just enough time to catch Peter, Bernice, and Axis running right for James and Regulus, with a spider chasing them. Remus had called him back, and he'd stayed. The moment James collapsed, Sirius did as well. At first, he'd been on his feet, fucking ecstatic because he thought they'd won, and then the rule change was revoked. And then James turned to reveal that he'd been stabbed. And then James fell. Sirius fell with him. He's there on the floor, hands in his hair, gripping his skull, watching his best friend bleed out, rocking back and forth as he struggles to breathe. Rocking. Remus wants to take care of him, but he doesn't know how. This time, he doesn't think he can. Have you ever had something become so much a part of you that you can't imagine your life without it? For some people, this could be something as simple as a habit. Smoking, biting nails, a pattern of sock, shoe, instead of the correct sock, shoe. For others, this could be a person, a best friend, a lover, or even a stranger you see every day. For Regulus, this is a feeling. Hating James is so deeply ingrained within him that he's quite sure it's in his DNA at this point. He doesn't know who he would be if he didn't. James is dying, and Regulus doesn't know who he is. James loves him. Of course he does. Of course he would, because they're a great big tragedy. Of course James spent 10 years loving him, just short of the time when Regulus would have been able to accept it. Of course they would have everything they ever wanted from each other, just too late, too soon. 2 hands reaching out for one another that never quite made it. The branch broke long ago, and James is about to hit the ground. Regulus wants to catch him. When Regulus was 9 years old, he found an old book in the bin in his school library, discarded from the story between the pages. A revolution on paper. Contraband, really, because no one was ever supposed to come into contact with anything that could promote rebellion. This included the Trojan War. No, don't do this. In particular, Regulus was fascinated by the Trojan horse used to enter Troy. It struck him, the brilliance of hiding something within something else, because no one ever saw it coming. No one could have predicted it, and it was foolproof. It influenced him so much that when life waged a war on him at 15, he thought to turn himself into a Trojan horse. When Regulus hid, he hid within himself. He folded himself down and retreated, just like the Greeks, waiting and waiting for the cover of night to return. But it never seemed to come. He always thought he was stowed away, just awaiting the moment it was time to destroy Troy. It's some kind of cruel irony to realize that, in truth, Regulus was never the Trojan horse. Regulus is Troy. He's always been Troy, because the real Trojan horse, this whole time, was love. Regulus, without even knowing it, hid his love within his hatred, and no different from the Trojans, he pulled the wooden horse of his hatred in like a trophy. After a fruitless 10-year-long siege, night has fallen, and the time to destroy Troy has come. Regulus can feel it, just like the men escaping the Trojan horse. Regulus's love comes pouring out to wreck him, to burn Troy to the ground. From love to hate? No, they were always the same. It was always the same thing, and he is fooled just as Troy was, a city burning into the morning light, the war cry of victory, more of a mournful croon. If only he'd known, he would have, stopped it? That's the whole point of the Trojan horse. You can't stop it, because you're too blinded by what you believe it is to look inside. It was supposed to be hatred. Regulus thought it was hatred. It had to be hatred, because this, what it really is, would only lead to a fallen city, the destruction of Troy, of him. He never climbed, because branches break. He never looked inside his hatred, because he thought he was the wooden horse. James is dying, and Regulus hates him. James is dying, and Regulus loves him. James is dying, and Regulus hates and loves him, because they were always one and the same. This whole time, not for 5 years, not for 10, but for 15. It's been the same. I hate you, he says. I love you, he means. I love you, he feels. I hate you, he knows. Around and around, but the circle is made of the same from beginning to end. It's ripping him apart. And so it is love. He's burning, and so it is love. So it is love, and he should have known, because only love can hurt like this. Everything, everywhere hurts. Agony that resonates so deeply in him that it echoes through to the past. And is this why he once looked at James and felt so close to falling apart? Because somehow, impossibly, something in him could feel that he would end up here? Hey, James murmurs, gently nudging Regulus's head on his shoulder with his cheek. Reg, look at me. Slowly, Regulus lifts his head. He looks at James, and he is a city burning to the ground, crumbling into ash. He's being torn down, brick by brick, dismantled piece by piece. A place, more than a person now, one suffering catastrophe. My fingers are going numb, James informs him, sounding ridiculously calm about this. I'm fairly certain that means I don't have much time, so... James, Regulus rasps, numb and cold all the way through, shaking like he's about to fall apart. Listen to me, James whispers, breaking their hands apart to reach up and frame Regulus's face, gently thumbing under his eye. His face feels puffy and raw, but James just gazes at him like he'd like to do that forever, until his last breath. I know you're upset, but look at it this way, yeah? You and Sirius will have each other. I'm not what Sirius needs, Regulus chokes out. That was always you, James. He needs you. Please don't do this to him. I don't know how to be enough for him. I need you to do it. Stop it. I know you, and I know him, James tells him, holding his gaze. You will mend, together. You just need a bit more time, is all. And now you'll have it. Don't waste it. Regulus shakes his head. This isn't right. It's not. My parents. James pauses, then swallows, then gives him a wobbly smile. My mom and dad cook dinner every night, and perhaps this is unfair of me to ask, but I'd hope that you would join them at least once or twice a week. They're used to feeding too, so it would be nice, I think, if you joined Sirius. Stop. Please stop, Regulus demands, his voice cracking. His eyes are itchy and swollen and abused. The hat, James continues anyway. Your hat. I kept it for you. Remember where I said it was? In my... Regulus cuts him off by leaning forward to kiss him, squeezing his eyes shut as his relentless tears spill over again, burning, leaving trails of fire on the city walls of his cheeks. James's lips are dry and warm, and he tilts forward into the kiss instantly, despite the fact that it's not a very deep one. It's firm and hard, but closed-mouthed. More of a move made from desperation than a kiss born from desire. James's eyes are shut when Regulus pulls away, lips parted like he's savoring it, like it's a gift. It wasn't. Regulus didn't do that to be kind. Regulus did it because he wanted James to shut up, because he needed time to think, and because he wanted to do it when it was real, at least once. Exhaling, Regulus sets his shoulders, feeling his resolve harden within him like iron infusing with his bones. He studies James's face for a long, long moment and reaches the conclusion he was barreling towards at full speed anyway. The conclusion that's been building within him since they entered this fucking hopeless, helpless arena. Regulus doesn't want to go home without James. He's not sure if home exists at all without James. Ironic, isn't it? He said he'd do anything to make it back home, and he's had home with him this entire time. Just failed to realize it until it's too late for it to matter. Always so close, but never close enough. What were Regulus's motivations? Not his parents, if he's honest. It would almost be a relief to never make it back to them. He has no friends. There's Barty, but he's one person, just one. And he has other people in his life. It wasn't for Sirius, because he didn't even have Sirius to go back to. So what were Regulus's motivations to make it home? What did it come down to? What was the driving force behind his desperate need to survive? His hatred for James. The true reason behind it all was that he hated James and refused to lose to him, as he has so much lost in every capacity with James already. Except, as it turns out, Regulus's hatred for James has been nothing more than a wooden horse holding his love within, and that's manifested itself in the arena in countless ways. So obvious now. How did he miss it? He'd been so sure. The Trojans were fools, too. So, what are Regulus's motivations to get home now? Troy is burning, and he knows the truth. He doesn't have parents who will welcome him into a safe, loving home when he gets back. He doesn't have more than one friend who will be glad for his return. He doesn't know how he'll ever manage to be enough for his own brother, especially when they'll only look at each other and see the person they both weren't ready to lose. What are his motivations? What are they? He doesn't have to ask himself to know the answer, but he hears Sirius's voice in his head anyway, just like the day his name was called. Are you planning on coming home, Reggie? That day, Regulus had said yes. Today, now, he says no. Because fear was always a motivator too, but he's not afraid anymore. What? James mumbles, eyes fluttering open as he blinks at Regulus. Was that another parting? Again, Regulus doesn't give him the chance to finish. He folds forward once more and kisses James hard, fiercely, like he really fucking wants to, because he really fucking wants to, like it means something, because it does. James makes a muffled noise into his mouth, leaning forward into the kiss, eager, always so eager. Regulus uses that to his advantage. Carefully, he pats around on the ground as he dips in closer, his heart jumping the moment he comes in contact with what he's looking for. As soon as he has it, he practically climbs into James's lap, ignoring his grunt of pain, either from his leg or his stomach, or both, and kissing him harder and deeper until he's giving a breathless moan, despite his pain. "What?" James wheezes against Regulus's mouth. "Reg, I don't know what's happening, love. Is this—" "Shh, it's okay," Regulus whispers, pressing gentle, fleeting kisses against James's mouth. He slides his empty hand down James's arm, grabbing his wrist. "Lift your arm for me." James responds to the words like a puppet on strings, his arm raising as his breath rattles in his chest. He's struggling to breathe. Regulus can hear it, and it's not just from some kiss. He's surely in pain, especially now that Regulus is straddling him, and yet he remains compliant, happy to participate. As a reward, Regulus dips in and kisses him again. It is admittedly quite fucked up, because it's to distract him, too. James is so caught up in the kiss that he doesn't realize what's happening, so there's nothing he can do when there's a distant click and clang of metal on metal. James's mouth goes still against his own, and Regulus eases back with a shaky exhale, watching James blink rapidly and tilt his head up. I'm scared. And tilt his head up to stare at where Regulus has handcuffed him to the pole. The pole has hooks that the supplies were hanging off of, which means James can't just stand and ride his handcuffs up and off the pole. He's stuck. James gives a small tug in visible confusion, looking at where he's trapped with no understanding of what's happening. He pulls again, seemingly instinctively, then frowns and looks at Regulus. For a moment, neither of them speak, and Regulus feels his heart break a little bit, because he's about to shatter James's for the second time, and this time, he's choosing to. "This is not how I expected myself to go, if I'm honest," James mumbles, eyebrows furrowed. "Reg, what are you doing?" Regulus swallows and folds forward to press a gentle kiss to James's forehead, his hands coming up to frame James's face and hold his head still. When he pulls back, he meets James's gaze and gives him a wobbly smile. "Sirius needs you, James. Your parents need you. The world. The whole fucking world needs you. The only place you're going is home." "Regulus," James says, an edge to his tone, as Regulus shifts backwards and starts to ease out of his lap. He surges forward to fist the front of Regulus's shirt, holding it in his grip, so desperate that the stitches and seams make ripping noises as James stretches them out, trying to drag him back. "What the fuck do you think you're doing? Come here. What are you? You chose me, and now I'm choosing you," Regulus murmurs, grimacing slightly as he grips his shirt and forcefully yanks it from James's grip. James trips forward on his knees with a groan, scrambling to swing himself around and grip his stomach, which is still bleeding, as he pushes himself out as far as he can go, reaching for Regulus. Wait, Regulus, please," James chokes out, sounding genuinely distressed as he rocks onto his feet, half bent over from where the handcuffs won't let him stand all the way. He must be in immense pain, but he just lets out a muffled noise and drops his hand from his wound to reach it out towards Regulus, his palm covered in blood. Just please, okay? Come here. Will you come here, please? Stop backing away, all right? I'm sorry I never worked out how to be all right enough to give us the chance we deserved," Regulus rasps. "Because that's what it all boils down to. You, more so than me, deserve to be happy. And I wish I could have tried to make you happy, but I couldn't. I have a lot of regrets about that." James leans out as far as he can go, both arms spread wide as he tries to bring them closer. Regulus takes another step back, and James's breath goes even more erratic than it was prior. His eyes are wide. He looks terrified. "Just wait a fucking second, would you? Think about this, love, okay? Whatever you're doing, whatever you're trying to prove, just don't. Please, just come back here. Just stay with me." "I can't do that," Regulus whispers. Regulus, James snaps, panic tinging his tone as he yanks fruitlessly on the handcuffs, straining forward. Fucking stop it right now. Don't you dare do this to me! You don't get to do this to me! Not after everything! Not after you've spent years making sure that you never would! Please! Regulus takes a deep breath, then slowly releases it, feeling oddly calm. It's a strange sort of serenity that falls over him. Something in him settles down. That's the thing, James. I spent years doing everything I could to make sure I believed I never would. But the truth is, I understand. You said I didn't understand because I don't feel the same, but of course I understand. I've understood longer than you have what it is to love someone so much that you know you'd never recover from losing them. I never recovered. I lost you, and I lost Sirius, and I lost myself, but I understood then, and I understand now, and I've understood always. I've never stopped understanding. Stop! James bursts out, surging forward frantically as Regulus starts backing up with purpose. Regulus, get back here! Don't! Please don't, Regulus! Please just wait, alright? I'll never forgive you. I'll never recover, okay? So please, I'm begging you, just please stop. Even if you hate me, you'll still love me, Regulus tells him, lips curling up sadly. Trust me, I know all about that. James releases a choked noise, folding over a little bit, like the words are a physical blow. He stumbles against the ground, from where he's trying desperately to yank his hand free from the handcuffs, to no avail. He groans through his pain and whines with his fear, and Regulus has no pain and feels no fear, because acceptance is easier when it's driven by love. Keep eating meals with your parents, take care of Sirius, and let him take care of you. You've had my hat this long, so you may as well keep holding on to it for me, Regulus says, coming to a halt on the bank of the river. James seems to be holding his breath, like one move will be the push that sends Regulus over the edge. If I'm lucky, James, maybe I'll have a slice of paradise waiting for me. If I do, then you know where I'm going. However long it takes, I'll be there when it's time for you to come. We'll dance, and we'll laugh, and none of this will even matter. The other life, where we're not a great big tragedy, that's where I'll be waiting for you, baby. Please, James begs, and it's mere breath, almost lost to the wind because it's so soft and feeble. He shakes his head, tears steadily building up and spilling down his cheeks. Please don't leave me. I'm sorry, is all Regulus can think to say in his last moments, because he is. He's so sorry about so many things, and it's too late for him to do anything about it. So close, and as always, never close enough. He's sorry that Sirius has to see him die, after losing so much of himself to do everything he could to keep him alive. He's sorry he was too lost and too fucked up to even realize what he wanted, let alone let himself have it. He's sorry he didn't climb higher. He's sorry he never looked inside the wooden horse. He's sorry he's Troy. He's drowning in his regrets before he ever hits the water. It's easy somehow to give himself over to gravity, relaxing back into the free fall. He hears James yell, calling out his name in frenzied desperation, and it's the last thing he hears before he hits the water with a splash. The crimson river welcomes him like it was waiting. It welcomes him with cold, clawed hands that drag him deeper beneath the surface. Regulus realizes very quickly why it only takes 2 minutes for those in the Crimson River to die. Because it's not just the drowning one has to worry about. It's also the hands yanking at him, claws dipping in deep and ripping at his skin, trying to pull him apart. They're relentless, ruthless, and he can't stop himself from opening his mouth to scream underwater, lungs protesting and pain exploding in every limb. Except it's not water, it's blood, and it's thick in his mouth as he swallows it, instinctively trying to survive even now, just as he has been this entire time. There are hands raking at his chest, one pushing in like it's trying to get to his heart and snatch it right out like a trophy. And that's exactly what it's doing, he realizes, and that's how he will die, heartless. No one can hear him beneath the surface, but his muffled, waterlogged screams take the shape of a name. In his panic, in his haze of panic, it's Sirius he instinctively calls for. The raw, devastated scream of grief echoing through the building is so loud that those in the suites above and below, the one occupying one Sirius Black, can hear it with horrifying clarity. A sound so cataclysmic that it hooks into the soul and floods one's empathy until the pain is too unbearable to withstand. And it's not even their pain. Imagine how Sirius feels. It's his. The pain is his. The grief is his, because his little brother just tipped himself over into a river he can never resurface from. Hands yanking him down in seconds. The moment he disappeared, Sirius felt his heart cave in, like it hardened and then absurdly broke apart into fractures all at once, as soon as Regulus was lost to him. Sirius is here, and he doesn't want to be here. He wants to go away. He wants to stop existing, perhaps selfishly, not experience this moment. He wants to forget. He wants to lose this because he can't tolerate it. He can't handle it. Why won't his mind and memory let him escape now? At first, Sirius doesn't even realize he's screaming. He thinks it's only James because it's James's wail that plays out in his head, exactly the same length and level of agony that Sirius feels assault him, like they're synced even in their pain. And then, Sirius, hey, stop. Sirius doesn't know he's slamming his hand into the side of his head, trying to forget, begging his memory to fail now, wanting it more than he ever has, not even aware of the action until Remus collapses on the floor next to him to yank his hand away. Arms wrap around him, holding him in place as he folds forward into the crook of Remus's elbow, trying to spill out of his arms, trying to crawl away, like he can physically escape the grief if he just moves. My brother! He's my brother! Sirius chokes out, desperate for someone to understand, needing someone, needing the entire world to grasp how fucking devastating this is. If they realized, if the universe understood, maybe someone or something would make it stop. Okay, hey, I know, Remus whispers, holding him. We never even got to. Sirius cuts himself off with a small sound, weak and helpless, like he's drowning too. They didn't get to fix it. They didn't have enough time. Sirius never got to tell him that he loves him. I'm sorry, Sirius. I'm so sorry. Remus fits his hand in the back of Sirius's shirt, letting him slump into him, his face turning into Remus's arm. He can feel the hot drip of his tears smearing his face and Remus's sleeve. Remus keeps himself together, being the rock Sirius needs him to be right now. He kneels right there and lets Sirius sob against him, not saying another word. Sirius tries to forget, and this moment remains seared into his memory, vivid and solid. He'll never forget how much pain Regulus is causing him right now. Never.